Hey there, let's talk about GitHub Copilot and see if it's worth it, right? In other words, is it worth spending $20, which is what I think it costs per member per seat? Is it worth spending that money? And is it how valuable is it going to be from a dev standpoint, right? There's no. This is a very simple question because I've been using it a few months, and I have to tell you, hands down. I mean, if you're not spending the $20, unless there's really some other better way of spending $20, there's probably one way. You should put that on some of our APIs and make your life better, so you don't actually build your backend systems for no good reason. But that apart, I think it's an amazingly useful $20 spend, if you ask me, right? I'll give you an example actually, right? I'll do a screen share as well at some point. But the weather is like absolutely brilliant here. It's almost like San Diego in Loudoun County in November. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense to sit inside. Definitely not when you're actually looking for a project, which I am actually. So, we've done everything we intended to do in this quarter. Now it's time to just make some money and, pay our bills, right? Just keep the lights on, so to speak. So, even though I started this video with Copilot, I just digressed 2 contracts, but it doesn't hurt. And I'm also going to say check out our app on ios.snowpal.com, because when you're a startup and you're doing like 10 things and you have like 5 products, it's sometimes hard, terrible excuse, hard to keep your focus to one tiny thing in a video because there's like 10 things going on in your mind. Anyways, back to Copilot, right? So the iPhone is really heavy. I have to hold it for like 2 minutes in a weird angle, it starts hurting. Okay. I was like, let me give you an example, right? We have recently we're doing some Go work. We are a polyglot shop, so we work on multiple stacks in any given week. But our recent work was actually on an API that is built on Go. So we were, I was actually implementing something. Let's take a very simple example, right? There was a truck that had a couple of different attributes. I believe it was like title and description or something like that, right? And I had to check to see if the title was nil, and if it's not, I had to print it out in a certain format, right, using fmt format.sprintf, etc. So I wrote a couple of lines of code, and then I went to the next line and I had to do something similar to the next attribute, which was description. So in a pre-Copilot world, you would have actually written those 2 lines of code, right? I mean, how long is it going to take to write those 2 lines of code, right? Maybe another 30 seconds, a minute. But that's not the point here, right? The efficiency that Copilot brought to the table. I just went to the next one. I typed the letter I, just the letter I, to start type the if statement up, and it actually wrote the next 3 lines for me entirely, exactly, right? Because it knew that the attribute that I dealt with recently, like 2 lines above or 1 line above, was title, and it belongs to a particular struct. And then there's the next attribute happened to be description. So when I type the I mean, I have to understand how this works from a language, from an LLM standpoint, because we are going to be building these APIs, in the near future, in the next quarter or so, that deals with AI and LLM essentially. But it was absolutely brilliant, because you're like, what, it is actually thinking like you as a human, right? Because there is this next attribute, and starting with I, it meant, possibly you're writing the if statement, and it spit out those 3 lines of code that was exactly what, that was 95% of what I wanted, right? So all that I had to do was hit tab, and I was done in the next 5 seconds, literally. So, there's just a random example, but that's just to tell you that I've fallen head over heels, in love with Copilot, and I would highly recommend it, as much as I would recommend our own products. Just a little bit lesser maybe, but still you get the point. Thank you.